Wrote that up for you. A daily podcast that shines a light on the American justice system and its role in empowering the powerful to take from you. The justice system is the only branch of your government where an individual, rather than the collective, can make the system act for you. It puts power in the individual's hands, but it's broken and being used against you at a time when you need it most.
And we are live on Who Wrote That Up For You. Today is Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. I'm Sonia Ebrin, a co-founder at Courtroom 5.
And I'm Deborah Sloan, the other co-founder at Courtroom 5.
Oh, we have a marvelous show lined up for you today. In a few moments, we'll speak with Emily LaGratta. Emily is a lawyer and a justice reform innovator. She'll share some of the things she's learned about working in the civil justice system and her efforts to reform it. A little later in the show, we will speak with David Emanuel. David is the owner of I Find You Investigations. He's a private investigator, the primary source of evidence and discovery in civil cases. And so we'll get his experience and his perspective on the civil justice system as well. A couple of wonderful conversations lined up for you there. Before we get there, though, Deborah, what's on your mind today? What's our issue of the day?
I want to talk about this fellow in Rhode Island who basically takes companies to court based on and sue them for violation of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. And he's had more than 100 lawsuits. And he typically goes to state court, and the defendants usually have it removed to federal court, which he doesn't like. But anyway, he's been accused by more than one attorney for the defense of running a robocall litigation business, luring luring those poor spam calls in order to file these TCPA cases. And he's in the hopes that it nets him some type of settlement. So, so they're all up in arms about that because he's got these burner phones, and when he gets his new number, somebody calls him, and then he goes into court and he sues them. And it's a plan. It's okay. This is how I'm going to make my money. Where's my monthly payment? Basically. So I thought that's as an interesting way, let me say, of making money, but also an interesting way of using the courts.
Absolutely love it. I absolutely love that. 100 lawsuits by a pro se litigant. And he has got to have, lawyers have practice areas. They have specialty types of claims they like to handle. Oh, this fella has a specialty. All right. That is fantastic. This is another example of, hate the game, not the player. I am not mad at him. I hope he has made lots of money. I wish him the best of luck. I hate robocalls. You also remind me, it's a legal VIP, I won't call his name, once publicly accused us, you and I, of funding our operations and our lifestyles through suing people just by litigation. And it was complete speculation. We must be making money from what we know how to do in court, right? It's obviously you and I have found a different way to make money from that, but it just reminded me, and it was a very loving comment. It wasn't pejorative at all. He was quite complimenting us on doing this, but it reminded me that there are people who actually do that, who take their knowledge pro se litigation to find claims to pursue as a business model or a profession. And I'm not mad at him at all if you pick the right targets, as apparently this man has. So continued good luck to him. These folks from dialing my number, I'd love it. Absolutely. That's great. That's great. Well, Who Wrote That Up For You is sponsored by Courtroom 5. At Courtroom 5, we believe the courts belong to the people, in particular to the people who use them. And we, the people, are coming to claim our courts. And so if you are in court without a lawyer, or you need to sue someone and can't find a lawyer to represent you, get yourself over to courtroom5.com, try a limited version of our services for free, and we hope to provide some relief for you there. At this time, it is my pleasure to welcome to the show Emily LaGratta. Emily, thank you for joining us on Who Wrote That Up for You.
Thanks so much. How are you guys?
Wonderful, wonderful to see you. Emily, you are a lawyer. I know you've spent some time in big law. You've been a public defender across the board, and now you find yourself dedicated to reforming the justice system. Tell us about that trajectory, if you will, and just what got you interested in reforming our civil justice system and criminal justice system.
Sure thing. I'm impressed. Your sleuthing revealed my 5 minutes in big law that I spent. I was one of those strange law students who didn't really think they wanted to be a lawyer. So I was just trying to learn what I can and what I could, and kind of see what would come out. I always hoped that I would find more of a policy type job, but law school did what law school does, which is kind of track you. And so I guess that's my short explanation for how I dipped my toe in big law. But I just always had I was always attracted to, justice issues and in criminal justice in particular, and had done some clinical work in school on restorative justice and representing individuals who were incarcerated on their family law matters they had, and trying to get visitation rights with their children from inside a prison. These issues that were kind of adjacent to criminal justice, but very much showed the impact of our process on folks. So anyway, I had an opportunity to work at a neighborhood-based defender office here in New York City, which is where I'm from. It just, it pretty quickly shows you that the things you learn in law school are too tidy. And when you see justice play out in a courtroom, that, it's very messy, and the process is often dominates more than the substantive law does, right? You don't, the rights that we all learned about, you don't really see them, right? You just see humanity, being pretty downtrodden, and sometimes the system looking like it's actually often working against those folks. So anyway, so I did end up practicing pretty briefly, but I found my way into the policy space. So that's kind of where I've been these past, 14 years. And so I am thrilled now that, just due to the flexibility, I run my own consulting shop now, and have been able to kind of cross the aisle into my civil court, with my civil court peers, to see, where are our problems actually kind of the same problems, because we all need more or better solutions to these pretty tough issues. And so yeah, it's been delightful to get to know kind of new friends in the access to justice and other spaces. So I count you among them. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you for that background as well. I wanted to talk with you because I think you've identified procedural fairness as a key component of the solution here. Tell us what that term means to you and how you go about growing it.
Yeah. So I believe strongly that procedural fairness is a key component of the solution. So I love that question. I also know it's not the sole solution. So while I love it, it doesn't mean that it excuses us from asking other hard questions about fairness and justice. So I just wanted to get that out there. But I sort of stumbled upon the topic when I was I used to work at a place called the Center for Court Innovation, and was kind of in the right place at the right time when they got one of the first federally funded grants to try to translate the research coming out of academia on this topic into a court setting. So academics were learning these things about how to build trust and confidence between government and the people they serve. But how do you get a judge to implement that research, right? How do you get a judge or a lawyer or whomever to be better at that? Um, so that question is basically what I now spend all my time still pursuing. And so why it has been so exciting and I think rich all these years is there is a mountain of evidence that comes right from interviews and surveys with people who go through the court or fill in the blank, public institution. Um, it is their insights that tell us how they define fairness. Like, what does fairness feel like to you? And to me, that is an extremely powerful framing that is otherwise absent from how legal professionals approach problems, right? I think traditionally problems get solved by thinking like, well, what works really well for the judge or what works really well for like the machine, or what's most efficient for our clerks to process, X many cases per day, and these are all sympathetic, factors, but doing it without the input of court users is highly problematic. And so procedural justice is grounded in that, and so that appealed to me. And furthermore, it gives us some answers. So those surveys reveal that while people are wildly different, right, and they come to court and government with a range of problems, there actually are some common things that most people expect of government. And so when they experience those things, they are more likely to feel that government is legitimate, and they're more likely to then cooperate with whatever that process is they're engaging with. And to me, that's something we should all want, right? That like it's pretty hard to argue against those things. So those four things: procedural fairness, we kind of regard them as the elements of procedural fairness, or the building blocks. People want to have a voice in the process. This is not surprising to anyone who works in the kind of unrepresented litigant space. It's documented by research. That's one of the key things people care about. They want to see that decision makers are unbiased. That's a loaded one. But what are the ways in which those decision makers are conveying that the process is neutral? There's some kind of transparency strategies in there. They want to understand what's going on. That makes sense. And then last but certainly not least is they want to feel that they are respected and treated with dignity by that legal authority. And this is where I wish I was I had the kind of human psychology background that the academics who came up with all this did, but it makes sense to me intuitively as a person that respect is even more valuable when it comes from an authority figure, right? When that authority figure treats you on even ground as a fellow human being, I think that is an added component. So anyway, so as we do this work, we're kind of equipped with these four components that if we can help professionals to employ one or more of these strategies into the work that they're doing, that they might actually be delivering on fairness more in the eyes of how the public is trying to define it for us.
Extraordinary. That is so valuable. And I know that you consult with courts, judges in particular, perhaps with academic institutions. Where can people find you online if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so my consulting firm is called LaGratta Consulting, so lagratta.com. We have a range of projects going right now in courts. We're working with some prosecutors' offices, figuring out what this looks like specifically for them. We recently tried this in a Connecticut prison, seeing if we could get correction officers and their wardens to think and act differently in how they interact with individuals in custody. And so, the possible contexts are kind of limitless. And we've got some good, kind of a good roadmap of how to start tackling it. So
I love it. Fantastic. I'm so glad your consulting services and your knowledge and wisdom exist. Thank you so much for sharing that with us on Who Wrote That Up For You. Emily, continued good luck, and we will have you back to talk more about these things. Thank you so
It
much.
was such a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
You bet.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye. That's
That's
extraordinary.
great. Yeah.
Fantastic. But Deborah, who won yesterday's challenge, if anyone? And what do you have teed up for us tomorrow?
We did have a winner. Whenever it's a true and false, we typically have a winner. One person could email one and said true, and they email the next and say false. Anyway, true or false, you should bring all your witnesses to a non-evidentiary hearing. That is false. A non-evidentiary hearing is just that. They don't want to hear any evidence, so witnesses bring evidence. And the winner is Jennifer K.
Congratulations to Jennifer there.
And today's quiz, in an appeal, who writes the first brief? In an appeal, who writes the first brief? Is it a plaintiff, the defendant, the appellant, or the appellee? If you want to participate in today's quiz, send your responses to quiz@courtroom5.com.
That one is fun. Looking forward to seeing the answers there. Well, fantastic. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the show David Emanuel. David is the owner of I Find You Investigations. He's a private investigator. David, thank you for joining us on Who Wrote That Up for You.
Thank you for having me.
David, you are a private investigator. Could you give us the background that led you to that career, to that profession?
Of course. I used to own a bail bonds company for about 20 years, and I dealt with a lot of police officers, judges, courtroom people, things of that nature. Um, I just didn't write the bails. I actually went and tracked down the people. So it got me into investigation stuff. I had a friend of mine that owned a PI firm, and he just wanted me to contract out for him. So I started doing it, and I turned out I liked doing investigations more than I liked running down people and bailing people out. But it gave me a good grasp of because I met a lot of judges, I met a lot of bailiff clerk people. Um, Not all of it pleasant because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the doors that's not. I learned that depending on what judge you got, and what lawyer you got, you'll walk stuff and things like that. So you guys, I really appreciate what you guys do because what you guys do is good.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you saying that. Well, let me ask: if I'm looking for a private investigator,
Yes.
how do I decide between them? There's uh, one that says ABC Investigations, and then there's I Find You Investigations. And
Yeah.
how do I distinguish? What am I looking for?
Um, it's kind of like I get most of my business from word of mouth. A lot of people seek me out, um, and I do a variety of cases. Some investigators, they just do like certain things. Like you got the cheaters, then you got and that's just a really, it's exhausting, and it's to me it feels immoral sometimes for what I got to. I don't like doing it because it depends on the client. Like I have a moral compass that I go off of. I live my life by a code. So depending on what they want, I will do it. I won't go. I don't break the law. I really don't like because I'm a married man myself, so I don't like seeing stuff like that. I've had friends I've done work for. Well, I think my husband's cheating. Sometimes I found out they actually were, running numbers and stuff like that. And I hate to do that kind of that. I hate to be the deliverer of bad news.
Sure, sure.
Mm.
That's the word. That's the worst feeling.
And I think most people think of private investigators as, the guy hiding in the bushes with the camera trying to catch somebody cheating. But you know that there are a wide range of investigations, types of investigations. What are some of those other things, and are there cases that you like to take on?
I'm really big into asset location recovery. That is, I do it all from I do the cheaters. I don't like to, but I locate during COVID we were shut down because all the courts were shut down. Repossessions were a lot of. I did find a niche that I did like. It was like either a mother or a father. I had one case where a father, his daughter was going to preschool, but they were on bad terms. Baby mama drama, whatever you want to call it. But she made him and she made the staff give him a really hard time as far as the procedures, washing your hands and stuff like that. So I went there one morning with one of my little tricks. I keep a dog leash in my glove box. So it helps me get into buildings. It helps me walk. I'm looking for my dog, and I say, well, I take my wedding ring off, put it in my pocket. I say, well, I'm looking for my girlfriend's dog. I'm watching the dog. She's going to kill me. It's a little, cockadoo or something like that. And they're like, oh, and they're just so interested in trying to help you. But I'll say, well, can I look around? Your building here because she might have slipped up under their gate. And she's like, oh yeah. So I saw what she was doing. I have a body cam, and I actually was facing her, and
Wow.
she actually didn't make anyone else do anything besides the father of the child, which I was like, so that made me feel good because he was wrong. I gave it to her, gave the evidence to her, signed everything over to the lawyer. I said, well, here's the body cam footage. But 9 out of 10 times, 95% of the time, I don't have to show up for court because my evidence is there. It's on camera. It's solid. It can't be questioned or argued. If I do have to go, I go. But it's normally just because they want my presence there to say, hey, all these findings true? Yes. Okay. Have a good day. Step down.
I was
Hmm.
going to ask you that about your experience as an expert witness, and I'm assuming that's how you were called, right?
Yeah, I'm expert witness.
To come
Yes.
and testify as an expert and to authenticate the evidence you've collected as well. The body cam footage, like you just mentioned there. But you're saying, if I understood you correctly, that most of the time you don't have to actually testify, that the evidence you collect itself is enough to get the parties to kind of handle this without having to call you. Is that right?
Yes. I had a case and it was in Tampa where there was a lady. She was filing for disability, but they suspected she had a job. So I went there,
Hmm.
knocked on some doors to ask some questions. I actually found out a place she was working at under the table, and the lady was really combative until when I went there and asked her some questions, and she's like, "Well, who are you asking these questions about?" And I told her, she's like, "Oh, that woman." I could be someone's best friend. It's all depending on how you talk to someone. And I say, I'm not. She's like, no, 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 no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I was rude to you. This woman here, she burnt me. She burnt me. She burnt me. So she gave me everything, and I gave it to the insurance company, and she
Yep.
had to pay back like I forget how much. It was a certain amount she had to pay back because she was out. She was collecting. She was double dipping. She was getting disability, but also working on the table, which
Yep.
is
Now,
it's illegal.
most of your clients are going to have a substantial interest in the evidence you collect, and also substantial pocketbooks, I suspect, to
Yes.
afford your services. Do you get requests from unrepresented people or people representing themselves to collect different types of evidence?
I get them. I get them from all aspects. I get them. It depending on the person. I don't really look. I get so much business. I don't look at it as from a money standpoint. I just want to say, if I can help you, if you look like a good person, I'll discount it. Something. I do a lot of pro bono work for different attorneys and stuff like that on some of their cases because I just want to. I want to help people. It's not just about me. It's not about me making money. It's about me. I got a roof over my head. I can pay my bills. I'm good with that. So I try to help out anybody I can.
I'm almost afraid to ask you, David, where people can find you online because you're going you're going to get some requests off that last statement. I mean,
Oh, they can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I got. I do need to get a website put up. I get so since COVID kind of came back, like my business is 5 times what it was. I
Mm.
am slammed. I'm getting up at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning doing work. I'm one of those. I don't need sleep for whatever reason. So, plus, I got a 4 year old, so she doesn't let me sleep too much to begin with.
extraordinary. That is fantastic. David, I've got your company name on the screen for our viewers. I Find You Investigations. We'll share your LinkedIn and Facebook and other social in the show notes so that
Please do, please
folks
do.
can reach out
And
to you.
anyone that needs me, I'm never too busy to help someone who honestly needs it. But I'm always out there to help somebody, especially those in need.
And what is your coverage area?
My
What
cover, I do nationwide. Like I do background checks. I'm also a federal contractor for the government, so I do background checks for state, local governments, as well as individuals like certain businesses. I give like a certain discounted rate. My daughter's school, for example, I do pro bono for her school just because they do a good job with her and they deal with her during the day because she can't be something else. But all their background checks for all their employees. I do nationwide background checks. We utilize TLO as well as IRB. Um, TLO is a TransUnion. They have different law enforcement use it. They have different setups. Is like they got one for repossession. They got one for private investigators. They got them for attorneys, but they're all level. Like mine has like besides law enforcement, it's the next one down. So I get very very accurate, up to date information. Sometimes they're about a month behind if someone's moved. So I use IRB. That's normally updated within. If you moved on a Friday, I'll know your new address by Monday morning.
excellent. That's extraordinary.
Mm.
And I,
Fantastic.
I utilize that for depending on the client, and their needs.
Gotcha.
Sometimes I do a lot of moms. They get dads that run out on the child support stuff like that. So some of those cases I do pro bono, depending on the lawyer or if it's a friend. I even charge a friend. It's my weakness.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. Glad to have you as a friend. We find ourselves called. David, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
on
you
the
so
road.
much. Thanks for having me. Ladies, have a good day and keep doing what you're
Thank you,
doing.
David.
You bet. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
That
Extraordinary.
was, yes, yes, indeed. I like the different ways that people come at the law. I before we started this podcast, I'm like, okay, there are lawyers, judges, there are law clerks, and there are bailiff. Just naming the people in the courtroom, but they come from so many different places and
It's
and perspectives. I love it.
it is such a big gap that we're trying to fill, And again, people have to understand this is a branch of a three-legged government, if you will. It's huge and it touches so
Mm.
many lives, and
Hmm.
there's and in so many ways, right? And there's so many ways to sort of bias it. I don't mean that in a negative way, in your favor, including collecting evidence, including getting judges and court professionals to focus on procedural fairness for people who may not understand those various procedures.
Hmm.
There's so many ways to come at it. I am just very grateful to folks like David and to Emily and many of the other guests we've had on the show for sharing all the different ways to improve our court system. So that is
Exactly.
fantastic. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks as always for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow.
Are you feeling beleaguered, angry, or afraid, as if things are spinning out of control and you're powerless to stop them? It's easy to just let things slide and hope they don't get worse. But they often do get worse. The thing is, you're not powerless. Our courts belong to us, and their purpose is to give power to the powerless. Don't let your grievances pile up without redressing them. You can handle this in court. Or, if someone takes you to court, you can take them to school.